Now that we're in the tool, we'll take a look at the example of gender diversity. So in the chart to the top left, we can see the current gender breakdowns for this hypothetical organization for both managers and everybody else who we're referring to as individual contributors. So for managers, we're at just 12% female. For individual contributors, we're at 34% female. And this is current headcount as of the end of 2022. And then below that, we can see the targets that this organization has set for itself. So by the end of 2025, over a 3-year time horizon, this organization hopes to be at 40% female for individual contributors and 20% female for managers. So these look like great goals, but how do we actually achieve these over a 3-year time horizon? Now, in the schema to the right, this is what we were looking at in the previous deck. We can see the current state of the workforce, the future state of the workforce, and then all the contributing factors that take us from our current state to our future state. Now, you can think of each of these factors as a behavior of the organization. And what we can do is capture each of these behaviors in the form of a behavioral parameter. And these parameters are represented in the sidebar to the left. And we can then see what happens if we tweak these different behaviors. What is the impact on our gender diversity? And this allows us to explore very specific plans of action that will help us meet our diversity target. And it also puts many more levers at our disposal beyond what people typically think of when it comes to improving diversity. But before we get into experimenting with different behavioral changes for this organization, let's take a look at what would happen if we change nothing at all. That is, what happens if we just take the current behaviors of this organization, which are captured in the default values of these parameters, and just project those current behaviors forward 3 years. What is the gender projection if we don't change anything? And to look at what that is, we move over to our Diversity Projections tab, and we can see the dotted lines now remind us where we'd set our targets, so 40% and 20% respectively. But the blue bars, instead of showing us our targets, they're now showing us the actual projection based on current behavior. And we can see for individual contributors, we're getting about halfway to our goal. But for managers, we're hardly making any progress at all. We're going from 12% to just 14% female managers. So for this example, let's focus on that managerial category and see what behaviors we might tweak to improve that. Now, these top line projections are actually based on the projected dynamics within the 3 businesses that make up this organization. And in the chart below, we can see what the dynamics look like within each of these 3 businesses. So the gray line represents the historical actual headcount for each business up to present day. And then the blue line is based on a forecasting model that tells us our projected demand, where is our headcount growth headed. And then the red line is also based on a predictive model, and this tells us about our attrition. How many people are we likely to lose over the 3 years? So now that we have our supply and demand curves for each organization, we know our projected talent gaps for each business. So for business A, we're projected to have 676 openings, 101 for managers, and 575 for individual contributors. And we can then look and see, based on the current behavior of this business, how many of the openings are likely to be filled by female candidates. So for business A, we can see that just 15 of the 101 managerial openings are likely to be filled by female candidates. Now let's see what happens if we start tweaking some of these behaviors. And we'll focus first on our projected growth. So business A, this projected demand line, this reflects a projected demand increase of 50%. What happens if business A were to grow even more? Well, presumably that would create more openings that could then be filled by female candidates, with a positive impact on gender diversity. And again, for this example, we're focusing on the managerial diversity. So let's see what happens if we grow business A. Instead of 50%, we'll grow it by 65%. Let's see if that has a positive impact on our managerial diversity. So keep an eye on this 14% number, and we'll bump this growth up to 65%. And you can see that doesn't have any positive impact on our diversity at all. So there's something about the dynamics within business A where growing that organization even though it creates more openings, it doesn't have a positive impact on gender diversity. Let's see if the same thing is true for business B. So we'll take business A back down to 50%, and we'll grow business B. Instead of 5% growth, we'll take it up to 20% growth. And now let's keep an eye on our managerial diversity. If we bump this up to 20% growth, managerial diversity actually increases. So instead of 14% female managers, we have 14.7%. So there's something about the dynamics within business B where growing that organization helps to improve gender diversity.